Hello everybody, Austin Hill Shaw, founder of Creativity Matters and author of the Shoreline of Wonder on Being Creative. I want to talk today about the new and empowering definition that I have to offer for creativity. And I've given this in other teachings before where I talked about that my definition of creativity is basically 1, connecting with the world, and 2, affecting the world in a meaningful way. Again, connecting with the world and affecting the world in a meaningful way. But I want to contextualize this so you can start to see how creativity is starting to play out in your own life, or how it's failing to play out in your own life, right? Because sometimes when we start to see what the opposites are, and we start to articulate what that is, then we can start to see what we want to move towards, which I know from my own experience, and I know from talking to countless artists and inventors and scientists and authors, that we all aspire in some way to have our creativity fully expressed, right? Okay, so again, my working definition that creativity is connecting with the world and affecting the world in a meaningful way. Well, what might be the opposite of that? Okay? Well, we can say it's probably feeling disconnected, what maybe we call thwarted connectedness, and we might call it thwarted effectiveness, which actually leads to a sense of, thwarted connectedness is that we're disconnected from the world, and thwarted effectiveness just feels like no matter what we're doing, we're just not making any difference, okay? And perhaps that our lives are even a burden, right? But again, what is the opposite of creativity? For years I used to think that was the opposite of creativity was destruction. When you destroy something, that's the opposite of act of putting things together. But upon further review, I recognize that actually in every creative act, something is destroyed. Okay? In every creative act, something is destroyed. For example, if I'm writing a letter on a blank sheet of paper, what gets destroyed is the blank sheet of paper, and what gets bloodlet is my pen. Right? As an architectural designer, I recognize that every deck that I design that's perhaps made of wood means a tree will lose its life. Okay? And this is not necessarily something to be depressed over or saddened over. It's just the way it is. Actually, impermanence and embracing impermanence, embracing the transformation of things, including ourselves, is key to being a creator. But just recently, after reading a book called In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts by a doctor named Dr. Gabor Mate, I realized that the opposite of creativity is something that we can really help us to understand our lives and how we might move towards this and having more creative lives. And that is addiction. Okay? Addiction is the opposite of creativity. Why is that so? Because whenever we're addicted to something, we feel like we have no choice. We are compelled to do things. We have to watch this particular television show. We have to have this drink at this time in the evening. We have to go do this particular activity. And it can be on anything, right? We can be addicted to exercise. We can be addicted to food. We can be addicted to substances. We can be addicted to ways of being. We can be addicted to material objects or concepts or even spiritual experiences. Okay? So the important thing, the reason this is the opposite is that creativity, again, if we're connecting with the world and affecting it in a meaningful way, that requires that we actually develop a degree of flexibility and open-mindedness that when we go into situations. Does that make sense? Okay? So again, addiction is the opposite. But now we can also start to see how the connecting is one part and the affecting is another part, but they're partial realities. I'm going to show this for you first, okay? So connecting with the world is the passive pole of creativity, and it leads to creative insight. Creative insight is that aha moment, all right? It's a powerful moment. It's the sense of us opening up to the world and something coming rushing in. And we've all had that, right? We've all had that at some point in our lives. But again, this is passive, okay? There's lots of us that have all kinds of ideas that we never quite do anything with. We never quite do anything with, right? So when we have these insights but don't necessarily develop them, it's not quite full creativity yet, right? Next, over on the opposite pole, the affecting the world in a meaningful way. So affecting the world in a meaningful way is what I call manifestation. Okay? But you can see, if we are only affecting the world, having this manifestation, but we don't necessarily have an insight, that can be like us on a hamster wheel. Does that make sense? I mean, there are plenty of things that people do to affect the world, but it doesn't necessarily lead to that meaning, affecting the world in a meaningful way that is so important. I mean, people affect the world all the time by breaking things, or by calling people names, or by being subversive in certain ways, or being passive-aggressive. There's all kinds of ways in which we're affecting the world, and they're not necessarily producing meaning or positive output for others, okay? So, basically, in order to understand this, we can start to see that connecting with the world, having insights, without affecting it in a meaningful way is impotent, right? Nothing is actually happening except in the mind of the individual. Whereas affecting the world without having a sense of that direction you're going, that vision, is what we would call blind, right? Now, in any creative project, you can see yourself, going from this realm and back to this realm. So sometimes we're playing off one another, okay? Sometimes you're connecting at times, you get an insight, then you go out and manifest it, all right? But you're not necessarily connected to that original inspiration. However, there's another way in which we start to bring these two things together. The connecting with the world and the affecting the world in a meaningful way at the same time. And that is the experience of what I call self-expression. Self-expression is essentially this coveted experience of creative flow, where we are connecting and affecting the world at the same time. Okay? So, as we start to explore this idea of that creativity is connecting with the world and affecting the world in a meaningful way, again, we're going to work on both sides. We're going to figure out how we can be more connected to the world, how we can have more profound experiences of connecting, and also how we can be more skillful and effective in affecting the world in a meaningful way, right? We're also going to explore the idea of what is meaningful. Why are certain things meaningful? And we're also going to explore what does it take so that the connecting and affecting start to happen more at the same time. Again, there was I think Thomas Edison said something like, creativity is like 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration, right? That's the idea that, something comes into our minds, but then we have to just do all this drudgery in order to carry it out. Well, that's true in some ways. Insights tend to be brief. But I'm here to tell you that by cultivating those insights, by learning to open up more, even while you're working, that sense of perspiration, that sense of drudgery starts to go away. And what you start to experience is self-expression, creative flow, those sorts of things, okay? But we start incrementally, right? Again, this is the running definition is creativity is connecting with the world and affecting it in a meaningful way. And then that space in between, doing both of those things at the same time. And that's what we're going to develop as we go along, okay? I hope that makes sense to you. Just really let that sink in. Notice the times that you're either connected or disconnected with the world. Notice the times where you feel that you're affecting the world in the meaningful way. And also those times where you just feel like you're doing things with no significance at all, okay? It's just good to get that development. And also notice when you find yourself addicted to things. Okay? Because these addictions themselves are ways in which we often turn our backs from our own innate internal creativity. Okay? So I hope this was helpful to you. It's been great to be with you again. Again, my name is Austin Hill Shaw, urging you to connect deeply, to make a difference, and to inspire creativity in others. Okay? Does that make sense now? Thank you. I look forward to seeing you next time.